really prevent us from taking more time on this conversation. To this now, 100 days, that's the time period President Cyril Ramaphosa gave his government, business, labor, and civil society negotiators to arrive at a consensus on how to take the country forward by crafting agreements on how to kickstart the economy and create jobs. Now, more than 2 months after that deadline, there's still no agreement in place. Here's Business Unity President Bonang Mohale here on the program just the other day.
We like overcomplicating things because we like the sound of our own voices, rather than simplifying it, which is the work of leadership. There are really two both systemic and systematic challenges that are confronting this country. Some would say existential crisis. Number one is youth unemployment. At 74.9%, it's a powder keg that is just waiting to explode. Number two is Eskom. And in particular, we should be talking about stable, predictable, and reliable energy supply. Those are the two ones. But like typical politicians, we'll talk about the triple challenges. There's only one challenge. The challenge is stubbornly high levels of unemployment, period. Because this then leads to increasing levels of inequality and increasing levels of poverty. All of them can be addressed with one thing and one thing only: when you have the singularity of purpose and laser focus on what needs to be done.
Well, for Labour and Civil Society Constituencies Reflections, I'm joined in studio by the convener of the community constituency at Nedlac, Thulani Tshefuta. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Vuyo.
And on the line, we have one of the Labour constituency's negotiators, and that's COSATU's Matthew Parks. Good evening, Matthew.
Good evening, Vuyo. Good evening, Thulani.
Thank you, gentlemen, both of you, for agreeing to participate on this program tonight. Thulani, from where you sit, what's the cause of the delay?
Well, the process for the social compact was off to a very slow offtake right from the beginning. From the time the president made the announcement to the first round of engagements, that on its own took its own time. Secondly, unlike many other processes that have been deliberated upon in the higher structures of Nedlac, this one specifically started off with bilaterals that were taking place between all social partners with government, which to some extent we agreed with, because there are issues that from civil society we wanted to pick up with government and government only. Of course, we guess that there are issues from labor and business that they also wanted to pick up with government. And those issues are critical in terms of pulling us back when we meet as a collective. Hence, we agreed that the bilaterals should unblock all those issues that affect two constituencies, and by the time we meet, we should be dealing with issues that concern all of us. We must make this point, Vuyo, that our process of social dialogue has not been smooth sailing. There is a tendency of using social dialogue from each one of us to bargain for our own narrow sectarian issues. And in this process, we have taken a conscious decision as civil society that this is the process that we must use to rise above those, agree on the challenges that confront us, and define a national agenda to which this social compact will be the response to.
We're going to get to the latter part of your answer. I want to go to the first part, where you said the bilaterals. Was it only the bilaterals that caused the delay, or was it the bilaterals everyone wanted, but also other things? Just clarity on that.
Well, our view is the bilaterals took a lot of time. And the reason bilaterals took a lot of time is that there were emerging and significant issues of difference between these different constituencies and government. But the third element to it is that I know of instances where, from amongst ourselves as other constituencies, we would ask for extended periods of consultation, preparation for those engagements, and those also added to that.
Matthew Parks, from your vantage point, what are the causes for the delay or for not meeting the 100-day deadline that the president set for this process?
Well, I think, to be honest, government is best placed to explain that one. We have had some bilaterals. We've been a bit frustrated as Labour about the speed that government has worked on to engage with us. We've had a few bilaterals. We're only going to start the formal kind of a Nedlac engagements, I think, on the 11th of August. But look, I mean, as COSATU we're keen, and as organised Labour we're keen to have a social compact. You know, trade unions put a lot of value in social compacts because they believe that there's only so much individual parties can do. But the problems facing South Africa, facing workers in society are so huge. It really does require government and business, labour and communities to work together to all contribute something to resolve what affects all of us. But having said that, we've also raised with government quite sharply that a social compact has to be based upon progressive principles. It cannot be based upon pickpocketing workers, throwing workers under the bus. It has to be about protecting workers. That's about giving meaningful relief and solidarity to the poor and to the unemployed, about rebuilding a capacitated state to help develop society and the economy. We think everybody has to make a contribution and a compromise at times. We appreciate government on its own country, but things that business too also has to come to the party and put money on the table. We've said what we as Labour can put on the table, what we can contribute, what we can help can build the economy. But we've also said that we don't need to focus on many issues, not a long shopping list. We know what our problems are. It's about rebuilding Eskom, so we all have reliable electricity to grow the economy. It's about rebuilding Transnet so that mining, agriculture, manufacturing can grow, jobs can be created there. It's about rebuilding metro rail so workers in the cities can get to work on time, so those economies in the cities can be productive. It's also about tackling corruption in the state, about rebuilding local government, about giving support to the unemployed, about helping to reduce unemployment. So for us, those are the fundamental issues. We don't have to resolve everything at once. We've been telling government, let's focus on the big issues, which will make a meaningful difference to people. That'll give us political space and credibility. We can address other issues as we go along. But for us right now, let's focus on the key issues, as Bonang was saying earlier: unemployment, electricity, transit, metro rail, growing the economy. Let's not be distracted by a long shopping list of issues which will take us very long. But we've agreed with government. Let's give space for the next few months for engagements. Let's have a meaningful, not a rush process, but a meaningful, substantive process so that the president can then announce it and it can then enjoy credibility among society. But we've also stressed to government we don't have the luxury of too much time. We have elections in 2 years' time. Society is exasperated. Society is tired. They want to see progress. They want to see government. They want to see everybody moving along and their lives becoming better.
I think you've answered very well what was going to be my next question. But just for a bit of clarity on the first part of your answer, you are, talking about, how government has handled, this process. You seem to be putting the blame on it. But Thulani earlier spoke about the contribution that the other partners, in other words, I'm assuming he was referring to civil society, labor, and business, where the other constituencies have asked for deadlines precisely because they wanted these bilaterals, but I assume there were other things as well. Which is which, for you? Is it the speed with which the government has actually handled this process only, or do you also agree that you, or among yourselves, there are other, constituencies to be blamed for the delay as well? Just briefly on that one.
Yeah, look, we are frustrated with government, not just in the social compact, but generally, that government moves very slowly on most issues. They take a long time. And I think in this case, that has been an issue. Perhaps with the hindsight, the president made a mistake in the SONA to give a 100-day time frame, and government just didn't move with the necessary speed. But look, we don't want to crucify government for it. We support the idea of a social compact. But again, we also actually told government a few weeks ago, about a month ago rather, that when they wanted to get things done very quickly within a few weeks, they said, look, we've lost the last few months. Let's give adequate time now to engage so that we have substantive agreements and agreements that can enjoy the support not only of government, but also business, community, and labor, that all parties can feel they buy into, that parties don't feel they're being thrown under the bus. And if we do rush it at times, it can create unintended consequences. So I think for us, it's about now looking at the way forward, how to get things moving, and again, to look at the key issues which are really going to make a huge difference, and a difference in quite a short space of time.
Thulani, is this process at the hands, or entirely at the hands of the government? Are you, as the other three partners, kind of feeling, are you not at the driver's seat, so to speak? Are you not co-drivers, all four of you in this?
We can definitely confirm that there is a leadership role that is played by government, even in the coordination of engagements with other constituencies. But what we have done on our side as civil society is that at the point when government sets the program of engagement, and in between that, we find ourselves to be having pressing issues that we are ready to engage with, we have been able to knock on government's door and say we need this engagement so that we can unblock one or two things that constitute part of the issues that we have raised in the agenda of the social compact itself. And so we can definitely confirm that government has been at the driving seat of this.
Okay.
When the process started, the bilaterals were in such a way that government will convene the first meeting and the constituency is requested to put into the table what it thinks the social compact should be and it should do, and what should be its results.
Okay.
And out of those, the engagements would ensue.
Matthew has just detailed what this process means, I mean, for them, and what they believe it should or it shouldn't be. What, for you as a community constituency, are the key issues, and what are the things, or what is it that you want to protect?
We think this process should be used to agree on the most pressing of challenges that we are confronted with. And we are not running short of the scope of those challenges. There are cross-cutting challenges that if you look into the NDP diagnostic report, if you look into the research reports that are released by Stats SA, we would all agree that the challenge of unemployment is very high and unacceptable. The educational outcomes that we produce are way too low for the investments that we make on education. The economy, all economic indicators are having their head looking down. And so for us, we think that the process should then be used to redefine the national priorities that supersede our narrow sectarian interest into a national agenda that responds to the collective challenges of South Africa. And we believe that in that equation, we must spend an effort in undertaking activities that attract and increase investments in productive sectors of the economy, in which case we will grow the economy with the people. All we stand for is that the economy must be for the benefit of the people. The growth of the economy must not just be an indicator that many of us can watch on the TV and clap hands that the economy is growing. It must find expression on the daily lives of the people. And in that, we believe that employment should be one of those benefits, but other relief measures should be included in that. And we're of the view that social relief measures to address immediate pressures of poverty is not mutually exclusive with growth and employment for people to find meaningful economic activity.
Quickly on that last note, I'm keen to know what your position is, or whether you perhaps think what is going on now, the delays around the 350 rands grant, for example, and of course the broader conversation about a basic income grant. Where you stand on that, because I think they speak to that very last issue that you just raised.
We are the ones who proposed the grant in the processes of the COVID response in the country. Although we proposed it at a higher level, but it came to pass. When all other social partners at Nedlac were agreeing that there is no money, we wrote to the president and had a direct engagement with the president. The first extension of that grant was as a result of our pressure. In all our interventions, we insist that universal basic income grant must be part of the solution. For anyone who does not read poverty in research reports, who goes around South Africa, will see the glaring poverty, which this 350 rand grant and the potential that the universal basic income grant may have should be part of the package of the solutions. Quickly,
the president, when he spoke about this social compact, Matthew, said also that by the time parties get into these conversations, you should also be prepared or ready or be in a position to say, this is what, or these are the things that we're prepared to forgo or sacrifice, in search of this solution that is going to take the nation forward. Very briefly, from Labour's point of view, what are those things?
Sure. Look, we put in our proposal to government in March already what we as Labour can contribute. And in fact, to be honest, we've been contributing even long before we had our social compact discussions. So there's workers who build this economy, there's nurses who run our hospitals, there's teachers who manage our schools, and so forth, often foregoing wage increases, especially over the past 2 years. We've seen many workers go without wage increases. If you look at any company in South Africa, and virtually every single listed company, even unlisted companies, it is workers' pension funds who are investing in these companies, who actually give these companies the lifeline to exist, to hire people, to spend money, to buy products, to produce, etc. The PIC is workers' pension and insurance money. It's the biggest investment fund in the continent. We worked very closely with government and business and community over the last 2 years at Nedlac to release 64 billion rand from the Unemployment Insurance Fund to help 5.5 million workers in the private sector have money to take care of their families, also stimulate money to the economy. Now, the UF is not contributed to by the government. It's paid for by workers and employers. So in essence, it is workers' money that we have helped to channel into the economy. We actually initiated the Eskom Social Compact as COSATU in 2019. It was adopted in 2020. We offered assistance to government to reduce the Eskom debt, to enable Eskom to focus on maintenance and generation. We're still saying that offer still stands. We need to help Eskom get back on its feet because it is our most critical national economic asset.
Okay.
We've championed the Amendment of Regulation 28, which will allow pension funds to invest in infrastructure if they want to, if it makes economic sense and is attractive, which I think it will be in many instances, because we think that will help. When pension funds are worth about 8 trillion rand, that can help to generate huge amounts of money into infrastructure in the economy, which will help grow the economy. Governments own will never have enough money for all of our infrastructure needs. So we've said here, rands and cents we're willing to offer to assist government, to assist the economy, also, of course, to benefit workers. But we need government also to assist us, to help govern, to do what it's elected to do. And of course, we also need to see the private sector, the banks, also contribute on their side to match what we've been putting on the table long before we even had a social compact discussion.
Quick last word from you, Thulani.
We believe that communities must take responsibility in some areas. Key amongst those is the fact that you should not ban a clinic to demand water. Secondly, communities must be more conscientized to pay for services that we receive. And in exchange for that, there must indeed be service delivery. In exchange for that, there must indeed be no corruption. The third area is that it is communities that must guard against practices like illegal connections of water and electricity, and such that those who do such must be criminally dealt with. But in instances where people can genuinely not afford, interventions like the indigent programs of municipalities must be alive, working and responsive to the needs of the people. There must be no instances where people can just steal cables and all of those and nothing happens in communities. We must be the first line of defense against the infrastructure that is working for us.
Let me thank both of you, Thulani Tshefuta, Matthew Parks. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
To this now, all eyes